Hey, you know, I do a lot of videos on clubhead speed and power and distance, but you know, there's actually only three possible ways, only three ways that you could ever gain clubhead speed, only three. And right after this, we're going to talk about all three. Hey, this is Steve from HitItLonger.com. I'm on a journey to hit it longer and straighter off the tee, all the way to the green, because I think that's what makes golf more fun, at least for me. Hey, if you feel the same way, I hope you'll join us. Hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave a comment down below. So there's an absolute myriad of different tips and drills and techniques that will allow you to raise your clubhead speed, but all of them must fit into three families only. There's only three basic routes from which you can pick up clubhead speed. Let's take a look. Okay, the first family is essentially how big the windup is, and what that means specifically is how far is the journey from the handle and the club head at the top of the swing. How far is their journey, you could say in circle feet or arc feet, back down to the impact zone. So this would be like your dragster is doing 1/4 of a mile, and it has exactly 1/4 of a mile, let's say, from parallel to accelerate to the finish line. But what if we made the handle of the club both higher, deeper, and we sent the club head further around the circle, and we got the club to here instead? So this would be, once it's coordinated, it would be like being able to take that dragster and start it maybe 100 yards behind the starting line and get a running start at the green light. You know, if you had that advantage, you would probably never lose. You would always have the jump on the competition. So in one family of ideas, we're trying to get longer, wider, longer backswing, bigger shoulder turn, deeper arms, and more wrist cock. Think John Daly in this case. Now, the best tool that I have found that will help you with this first family of ideas is this little tool I invented called the POWER COIL PRO. With this thing, all you do, I'm going to wrap it around the pole here. I'm going to wrap it a little bit lower this time and just clip it on. I'm just going to walk out a few steps this way, and I'm just going to hoist the club into position like this, and I'm going to let it pull on me just like that. Now you see this very strong position I'm getting into. I'm getting into a very wide position with a very big shoulder turn. Let me show you a little trick we can do with this thing. If we just set this down further, it's going to simulate kind of like a John Daly swing, where we have to get the club head wound up further around the circle by getting the arms deeper and, of course, cocking the wrists more. So let me walk it out again, and you'll be able to see now the swing that I'm going to be emulating will be much past parallel. So I'm not only practicing with this device to get my body nice and stretched out, but I'm also using it for kind of a muscle memory. I'm kind of holding it there for 30 seconds, and I'm just kind of trying to remember exactly what position that I'm getting the club into. That way, when I go back to hit a couple drives, I can just swing it back to the same place. Now, this tool, again, called the POWER COIL PRO, it's available on my website. I found it extremely successful in adding yards to my students' drives, anywhere from 15 up to even 30 or 40 yards. But I found this is the best tool on the market, and I will leave a link down below so you can go check it out and pick up one for yourself. All right, we're back to the face-on angle. I've done some stretching on the POWER COIL PRO, and now I'm going to hit a couple drives. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go back into that muscle memory position that I had with the stretch. I'm not going to try to hit them for distance. I'm just kind of try to swing a little bit longer and deeper than I did on the first swings. Here we go. Okay, now the second of three methods, but the only three methods that you could pick up club head speed. It's kind of a basket or a family. So there's a lot of different drills and techniques that can be effective here, but they're all going to fall into one of these three. The second is, after we've made this big wind up, is how much force or torque can we apply to the handle of this club to get it to come back around and speed up. So the pattern that this force or torque takes as it goes from the top and it brings the handle back to the ball and the club head coming around faster to catch up and meet it at the ball, it kind of looks like, if you look at a 3D graph from some of the top PhDs who study this, the 3D camera system that studies and measures these forces and torques, it's kind of like a burst of energy. It starts to build immediately as you change directions, and yes, you're already trying to uncock the club. About here, you're reaching a peak, or the peak of like a burst of energy, like you were going to jump and slam dunk, or let's say an EKG reading your heart rate. It's kind of like a quick burst and then a relaxation again. And that's kind of the way that this works in golf as well, is we are throwing to a peak force. We are really giving it a rip. And then we actually let off and start to relax. And the forces actually decline as we come right here into the ball, and they almost reach zero. So we are nearing what amounts to a free hinging activity as we're reaching the ball, and we're no longer applying as much torque as we are in the middle here. So it's slowly builds and then quickly crescendos and then slowly drops off again. So the second way that you can build up your club head speed is by simply increasing this amount of peak force or peak torque as you're coming down into the ball. Now, a lot of the speed training that I've talked about and that other people on YouTube channels talk about, their speed training, it really does work. It works better for some than others. If you're more at the high end of the speed spectrum already, if you're already swinging at 110, well, you're going to have to eke out gains pretty steadily. A mile an hour a week would be actually really good. But if you're around 80 miles an hour, you might not be throwing this club to its maximum extent, or putting forces and torques into the handle to get it accelerating. You might be hindering it, steering it, holding back. Maybe you're pulling it in, something like that, and it's not resulting, your technique or your tension is not resulting in allowing the club head to accelerate. And in that case, you might gain a lot more in your initial week or two of speed training. Now, this is where you get into the argument of a little bit heavier, a little bit lighter. I think it needs to be a combination of both heavy and lighter than your driver clubs. And of course, there's lots of little training implements and devices out there, and I cover them on some of my other videos. But that's the number two idea or family, that you must increase the force and torque as you come down into the ball. The number three way that you can pick up club head speed, it's an old adage I really love. It's, hey, you can only speed something up as fast as you can slow it down, because you cannot swing your fastest unless you have enough runway, or in this case in a golf swing, enough arc feet of the handle and the club head to slow it down to zero before you injure yourself. So this would be, if we were doing drag racing one more time, we're coming to the finish line and we see a concrete barricade 100 feet past the finish line. Well, you're not going to be able to accelerate all the way through the finish line because you're going to drive right through into the barricade and kill yourself. So you would have to let off the accelerator and accelerate less at best. And at worst, you might actually have to completely let off the pedal and start to push on the brake before you got to the finish line. And therefore, you'd be much short of your potential to accelerate to top speed. Now, in the case of a golf swing, we've got to make sure that we have just as much runway or raceway after impact to slow the club down, and an ability to slow the club down. We have to have the reverse of that peak force over here. We have to have a negative force on this side in order to slow the club down safely. Now, using the orange whip, I like to do a drill where I just like to see the club out of my right eye as I come through. So it would look like this. And I'm going to try to turn the belly left of the target and bring the club head around to where I can see the orange ball out of my right eye. Turn it up the fairway like this. I can even bounce a few times this way, making sure I can get it past the camera, point it up the fairway, just to stretch out the body a little bit more so it can support a longer finish. All right, so I'm going to give it a try with utilizing all three families of ideas. I'm going to try to wind it up bigger than normal. I'm going to try to add more torque to support accelerating and uncocking the club and releasing the club head. And I'm going to allow it to freely come on over, touch me in the back of the neck, and hopefully even get past camera view and start to point back up the range again. Let's see how I can do. So hey, which of those three families of ideas do you think you need to work on the most? What do you think you have the most potential to move your club head speed forward? Is it the wind-up phase? Is it the burst of torque here? Or is it the full follow-through to help get the club slowing down? Leave it in the comments below. Hey, I'm Steve. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much for helping my channel grow so fast. Really appreciate it. And thanks to Golf Development Complex in Moorpark, California for the beautiful day today. And hey, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you hopefully longer and straighter down the fairway. Take good care.